And yes, I can confirm that after the latest patch, HDR has been improved in Doom: The Dark Ages, but it is still not on the same great level as Doom Eternal. Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. Before we start, as always, please do me a very big favor and like, share, and if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much. The issue in Doom: The Dark Ages in regards to HDR was the HDR black level floor. Back then when the game was released, the black level floor was hovering around 0.25 nits. This is in regards to a proper contrast or dynamic range way too high. A proper HDR black level floor should hit 0 nits sometimes, at least sometimes. Now, after the latest patch, the HDR black level floor is improved, but still not perfect. And when we're now looking at the HDR menu, what we have in the game, we can see they added a new setting, HDR contrast. The standard factory setting is 0.7, but I would strongly recommend, regardless what monitor, TV or screen you are using, increase this to at least 0.8. You can even increase this to 1.0 to have the maximum contrast, but keep in mind that after 0.8 you might lose very fine details in shadows or very dark areas. Unfortunately, I also found an issue with the maximum nits slider, because back then when the game was released and you set the maximum nits to, let's say, 1500 nits to match the LGG4, you got roughly around 1500 nits in specular highlights. Now, when you set this to 1500 nits, the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights is just around 1200 nits. And my recommendation right now for the maximum nit slider is, if you use a screen TV or monitor with a maximum peak brightness capability of around 1500 nits like the LGG4, set this slider to 2000 to get actually 1500 nits in specular highlights. And if you have a screen TV or monitor with a maximum peak brightness capability of around 2000 nits, set this slider to 2700. And if your screen TV or monitor supports 2500 nits maximum peak brightness, then set this slider to 3500. And if your TV supports up to 3000 nits maximum peak brightness, then set this slider to 4400. In regards to the HDR midpoint setting and the HDR brightness setting in the game, I would recommend do not touch those settings. But if you still think the game looks too washed out, you can slightly decrease the brightness setting in the game, but just slightly, because if you decrease this setting too much, you also decrease the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights. We talked about the contrast setting already, and I would strongly recommend that you increase this setting from 0.7 to at least 0.8, but feel free to increase it even more. The paperwhite setting is purely for the user interface or menu brightness, so feel free to set this up as you like it. And last but not least, we have the saturation setting, and I increased this setting from 1.0 to 110 to actually have a little bit of a more colorful picture. Okay, my friends, so this was a very quick video in regards to HDR in Doom: The Dark Ages, and yes, it is slightly improved, especially when you use my recommended settings actually in regards to the contrast setting and the maximum peak brightness setting. But it is still not on the same level as Doom Eternal. This is a little bit of a downside because I don't know what happened. I can't just don't understand it, because Doom Eternal actually showed an absolute masterpiece of an HDR implementation, in my opinion. Perfect HDR black level floor, no issues with a washed out look if the creators don't want to have a washed out look. But in this case, Doom: The Dark Ages always looks slightly washed out even after adjusting the settings, and this is due to the fact that there is no proper HDR black level floor, because even we're just talking about 0.05 nits right now, what the black level floor is raised. This is still not perfect. We would need 0.0 nits to have the best contrast in the game. Anyway, I hope my new recommended settings are helpful actually. Let me know in the comment section what you think, and let me know if you actually think that HDR is now much better in this game. Thank you very much, and I see you guys next time. Bye.